make a lot of noises.
No
Now,
worries. So
yeah, all right.
I just pushed the live button, so we should be getting going here.
Yeah.
It appears that we are currently live. Awesome. So we're streaming to LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. I'm here live with Anna Bagger at OAAA. Anna, thank you so much for taking time to do this. You know, the goal for today's topic is really talking about how the lines of digital and out of home are starting to blur. And, you know, what I mean by that is the decision-making process to invest in out of home and to buy digital, those decisions are actually kind of converging today, more so than ever. But would love to get a little background on you. You're kind of new to OAAA. Would love to get a little background of, you know, what you did at IAB before and kind of how that leads into and how that's really relevant today at OAAA.
Well, thank you. Happy to share that. But first of all, I would say really thank you for inviting me to this. It's my first session like this, and I really look forward to it. Always great to try new things, and I love this medium. So I have been, like you said, I'm new at the OAAA. I've been here for I think 9 or 10 months now. Obviously been an interesting time, not exactly what I had envisioned when I joined. Nobody could have imagined this pandemic, and it changed a lot of things. But I think for a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about now, I think the pandemic has been a catalyst and actually potentially a good force in a sense, and pushing our industry towards digital. So I came to the OAAA from the IAB, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, where I was for almost 9 years. And me joining out of home and my connection to out of home kind of started almost when I started at the IAB, because I have a background before that working in the mobile technology space and around mobile equipment and mobile services, and more of a telecoms background. And I came to the IAB to start up their mobile center of excellence, they called it. It was basically all their mobile operations. At the time, the IAB had not really focused on that at all, but the iPhone was out and they started to see a lot of content coming to phones. So the IAB wanted to kind of see if there was a market for advertising in mobile, which a lot of people were very unsure of and didn't really believe in. So I started to build that, and they wanted me because specifically for my expertise on the tech side of it. And it was really interesting. And we did a lot of very cool things. It was always about sort of growth, right, of a market that when I started was, I think, $650 million. And when I left, I think it was $72 billion. So it grew a lot in that time. And that's really what triggered me and what I liked when I was at the IB. Out of home early on, it sort of dawned on me as we were looking at mobile advertising that out of home needed to be a part of what the IB did, because it was such an important part of the overall kind of reaching the consumer everywhere as they were now mobile. We thought of mobile not so much as of the technology, but of the consumer and their journey throughout the day. So I started a small out of home committee at the IB, digital out of home, I should say. And we started doing some work, not very much, but some work in out of home. And it always fascinated me. I always loved the medium. I thought that it was incredibly interesting from a creative point of view. And then I think, especially working for IAB that represent publishers, I really liked the fact and was fascinated by the fact that there was no media surrounding the content. You weren't monetizing media, you were actually monetizing the ad, right? The location, and the advertiser owned that. And that gives you a lot of opportunities that does not exist in traditional media advertising. So it started kind of already there in 2010. And then I stayed with the IB, like I said, for 9 years. So I started running mobile. After a few years, I was given video. And then when I left the IB, I was running all of our industry initiatives, research and measurement. And again, I got the call from the OAAA, and I thought that, I really like that industry. I've been exposed to it somewhat. And I thought that my background, both with, mobile, with video, which I think is an important piece in out of home as well, and will become even more so, but also programmatic and automation and data and social media, like a lot of things that I thought would be a good fit for the industry. And like I said, I've always been interested in growing things and building things. And out of home is an industry, even though we're right now in a tough spot, but that is in a growth spurt, right? We're going through a digital transformation. We don't have all the problems that traditional media does have around brand safety and fraud and ad blocking and things like that. So I thought that this was an awesome opportunity. I can apply a lot of my knowledge to an industry that I know a little bit and that I really like, and I can continue to grow rather than protect, which was probably the focus more when I left the IB.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, yeah, and thanks for that. It's really interesting about that for me is before launching Rapify in 2015, my background was digitally native. I was a marketer. I was on the other side of the table, and I was always fascinated by out of home. I was always fascinated by how much opportunity there is for growth in this industry, and hopefully we're able to replicate some of the things that you were able to do, or some of the things you were able to see when you're at IAB with out of home. Because right now we're like an $8.5-9 billion a year industry in the US. It should be a $25+ billion business. And I see the adoption of new technology, audience-based selling, automation, programmatic, and so many different things that'll contribute to that. And that's really kind of the ethos of this conversation is, when we're talking to media buyers, when we're talking to the brands that leverage our platform, the decision to buy out of home is usually very closely married to the way that they're leveraging their digital channels. And so, out of home, like tech in out of home, when we first started in 2016, there was definitely a lot of really cool things happening outside of what we were doing at Rapify. And it seems like there's been this acceleration curve over the course of the last 5 years, and specifically in the last 2 years, a lot of new entrants to market, a lot of new technology. And so I'm curious, what do you think is leading are brands and agencies pushing this narrative? What do you think is driving so much of this growth?
Oh, I think there are a number of different things that are doing it. I think the push comes from the media owners or the supplier side, as well as I think the advertisers and probably the agencies too. It's, first of all, the rest of the media landscape is more digital than ours, right? So I think we need to sort of catch up. We need to make sure that we're included in this. And I think that, the industry has seen that. There's a lot of advantages with digital and modernization, that can be made. So I think that there's a push just to kind of catch up with media and be able to do a lot of the things that media has done really well. We also have the opportunity, in my opinion, to leapfrog and also avoid a lot of mistakes that were done on the way on the media side. We know kind of what works and what doesn't in digital now, what you need to think about. That could be around privacy or security, or just kind of how you build solutions so that they work, in a multi-channel environment. So there's a lot of upside for us there. So I think we need to catch up with it. I think advertisers are asking for it. Advertisers are becoming very smart about how they use their data and the data they have on their consumers. I think they want to use that ability to connect with out-of-home platforms too, especially as you're starting to think about how out-of-home is a platform that really can help amplify other media channels. You want to make sure that it all works together. And then, one other thing I think that is spurring this is a lot of the tech that was in media is now looking for new places, right? So we're going to get a lot of innovation just for companies looking for new markets to be in, and we're kind of a logical follow on to that. So I think it's coming from all angles, and I think the pandemic, if anything, has speeded this up, and will continue to speed it up, because I think what we've seen, if you look at out of home, the first thing to get cut when the pandemic hit was digital, because you can turn it off like that. But it was also the first thing to come back. And in this time when you need to be very nimble and you need to focus on tonality, and things can change in a second and people are very nervous, digital kind of really represents an opportunity to get your message out there in a better way. You can be faster. So I think that that's going to speed it up. And then, if you look at the distribution of or what out of home looks like in the rest of the world, at least in Europe, their out of home has a much more significant part or piece of the total overall advertising pie. and also the kind of the distribution between national and local. And much of that, I would argue, is because they're more digital than we are. So I think we've kind of, there's a goal that we've set for ourselves to get to. I think we're 9, probably going to remain at 9. I thought we would break the 10 this year, but we won't do that. But about $9 billion industry. And I think if we can get to a place, kind of a distribution like in Europe, for example, we should probably be a lot more, maybe the numbers that you talked about before. So, yeah, so there are a number of things that is driving this, but I do think that the time that we're in right now is going to help speed it up.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that's interesting just in the conversations that we've had with other media owners, brands, agencies, not just the out-of-home specialty shops, but some of the bigger AORs, is they're starting to bring the digital teams into the conversation more. And a lot of that, a lot of that has to do with the audience, and we know that an out-of-home exposed audience has a trickle-down effect to what it does on digital. And they're starting to realize that. Brand marketers also, it's less about, hey, I didn't know out-of-home could do that, and more about, I think out-of-home can do this, and how do we do it? How do we connect the two? And so I feel like that conversation's happening a lot more. And then leading off of that, you touched on the pandemic and how that's possibly a catalyst to brands and agencies buying audience and audience-based buying versus kind of more of this real estate style media buy. So I'm curious, do you think this is going to persist post-pandemic, and I'm curious, how do you think media owners and the industry can adapt to that?
Well, I think we have to. It's that's how advertisers want to buy, and how they reach. Of course, the location part of out of home is always going to be there. The real estate piece of it is always going to be there. We're always going to have landmarks and very important places, and the bombastic, piece of our medium. It's not going away. It's a big strength. But we are also everywhere. We are the medium in the US that reaches the most eyeballs, far surpassing Facebook, right? We're everywhere if you count out of home as a category. And I think advertisers really want to take advantage of that. But for that, you can't sell on location. You need to sell on the audience you can reach. Even in the most remote little local area, an advertiser might be interested in your audience. So I think it's a modern way of selling. We now have metrics and data that can support that. We're building systems to support it. So I think we're going to just, as an industry, have to travel in that direction. It's more about understanding. It's about understanding ultimately what the advertiser actually wants out of us, and that's how we're going to sell. It's the classic: you don't sell the drill, you sell the hole, right?
Right.
And I think that's what we want to get to. And I would argue that if we do it right, and I represent the sell side, right? So this is my goal for the industry. I think we can charge a lot more for our inventory. Our CPMs are so low if you compare it to other forms of media. And I think if we start selling an audience and start defining what the value is of our medium more clearly to marketers, we're going to be able to make a lot more money.
Yeah.
They will get a lot more value out of us too.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of really amazing work that AAA is doing, Geopath's doing, several other partners that are enabling these platforms to have audience data. But yeah, I think when you look at being able to buy out of home, where you're saying, hey, this is the audience demographic, these are the locations, all the parts are on the table. Mm-hmm. And it really just it's a matter of the industry coming together and the industry coming together and not jockeying for who's going to do it which way or what or how. And when you look at the very beginning of 2015, when we first started playing with how we're going to sell Rapify, we actually wanted it to be a self-service, CPM-based, demographic-based buy. That was my initial vision for how we did this. And I feel like we were just too early. It was too early, and that's just not the way that this kind of medium was sold. And so it's really interesting to see the industry starting to use these types of channels and data. Right now in this pandemic, I know our team's doing this. I know a lot of the different agencies are doing this, but they're using movement data, and they're using, traffic data, and they're using data to sell. Okay, well, just because you think people aren't outside, that's not true. Here's here's where the people are, and here's the inventory that would meet the need of that brand. And that's really encouraging to me, because I think that helps. That's going to help add way more value to out of home post pandemic. I think it's going to help drive up the CPM. I mean, I think that the average CPM across the board today is like $5 to $8 nationally, which is pretty ridiculous when you think about it.
I mean, I remember when I saw the numbers, they're like in certain categories it's lower. I'm like, really? It was mind-boggling to me coming from media with a medium that is so, I mean, it's 100% viewable, right? And it's
Right.
it's no, absolutely, and it works. I mean, we have all the stats to prove that. No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think that what we've been forced to do through the pandemic, just proving, actually came from having to prove that there was an audience there. I mean, I certainly struggle with that. People are like, so out of home, why out of home when no one's out of home? I mean, really? A lot of people are out of home. How many? The fact that we managed to retain such a large part of our audience and we could prove that so fast, it turned out to be a really good thing. And I think that that's now, people saw that, and now we're on that path. But I think you hit your head on the nail when it comes to self-serve solutions and using data in a more smart way. Because like I said, this again, advertisers today are very savvy. They know, they understand this. They know how they want to buy. They know, again, how they want to use their data and how they want to match that up with their advertising solution. They are very good at setting goals before about exactly what they're expecting and what they want to get. So I think building solutions that easily kind of plug into that, whether you're buying through an agency or the brand buys directly from you, because they have these shops internally now, I think it's imperative. It's how you need to do it now. And self-serve, I mean, that's being built in media now. I mean, Google and Facebook were kind of the first to the table with that, and that's how they built, their success. I mean, when I was at the IB, I frequently heard from our members that, oh, it's so unfair, from the publisher members. Google and Facebook, they have 60, 70, maybe 80% of the total revenue. And that's not fair because it's only two companies. Well, guess what? They went after a totally different audience that you did. They didn't go through just the big media buying shops or the big brands. They went out wide and made it easy for anyone to buy from them. They just said, here's our show, go in and buy. And now you see with media companies, they're buying these solutions too, or building this, because you kind of want to reach different groups. And I think that's what we want to get to in out of home as well. Easier bought media, where an advertiser or an agency can go straight in and you don't have to have a lot of complications in between. Then the most premium is always going to be the most premium. And we will always have that in our industry.
Right.
But
I just saw, like yesterday, Hulu announced that their self-serve platform.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this across not just the big digital folks, but we're seeing it across connected TV, OTT, streaming, audio streaming, and I don't see why that should change for out of home. And like you said earlier, we do have the benefit of seeing all the mistakes that the Googles, the Yahoos, the Facebooks of the world made, and we're also seeing a lot of this history repeating itself, and the way these agencies and brands want to buy ads, irrespective of the medium, doesn't change too much. It's kind of like, you need proof. You need to be able to buy the audience that you want to reach. You need to make it easy to buy. And we have the benefit of hindsight, and we also have the benefit of all this really amazing mobile and location data to power that. So.
Well, yeah. And look, I mean, it's not just learning it's a lot of the mistakes, and I can, and someone from the IB might get really upset now. And by the way, I love the association. It did me so much good, and was a great place to work, and did a lot of good for its members and built the whole industry in a very short time. But because we were able to sort of build a little bit without control, and nobody knew what the future looked like, nobody had done it before, a lot of those little bad things got woven into the system. So, when you look at brand safety and fraud and things like that, or for that matter, a supply chain with too many players in it, right? That costs a lot of money. we can avoid that industry, and we can skip those steps. We know what we shouldn't do, and we can build for that. And by the way, a lot of those mistakes are now benefiting our industry. If we can just become a little bit more digital, we don't have all those diseases, right? So I think, yeah, we have a really great opportunity to build something good here. And some of it will take time, like self-serve, I think is going to take us a couple of years to get to, but I think the aspiration and the will is there now.
Yeah. And, going back to like the definition of digital, a lot of people think, oh, it's digital if it's displayed on a screen. But I think that also extends into the way it's bought. I mean, so much out of home inventory in the US is static. And while the big three, the big four constantly updating and building out new, big, beautiful digital displays, making it easy to buy static, making it easy to, keep that one-to-one, is something that I think is also really valuable, because you're right, it's unblockable. It's there, it's part of the ecosystem where it exists. And that's really, really hard to replicate it across any other media channel.
Oh, I mean, the static part of our industry, which by the way, will never completely go away, but it's a strength. It's beautiful and it's fantastic. You can do things with static that are hard to do with digital, I think. Can be very, very cool. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to buy it in an auction environment or programmatic or in an automated way. I think what's important for us is to just think about everything we have and how you can create scale by connecting every single piece of our inventory, and whatever data it is that we need to tie to that to sell it in a better way. Once we've done that, we can be really hyper effective. And static is again big part of our industry, not going to go away. The fact that unlike digital, that we do have limited inventory, right? It's not infinite. There's not thousands and millions of billions of impressions out there and out of home. There are only so many, and there are only so many actual ads, if you'd like. That's a huge strength. That also can help fuel the prices. That was always a problem in digital.
So before I move on to the last topic, I just wanted to make sure all the viewers are aware. We're going to try to keep the last few minutes open for questions. So if you have questions, please start getting them into the LinkedIn Live video. We've got a few that have popped into the LinkedIn Live, so we'll let those come through. But moving on, it'd be really great to hear your feedback. And I know that a lot of these operators do get to hear the perspective from OAAA because they're all members, and we rely on the OAAA for a lot of things. But what do you think out-of-home operators and providers should do today to help accelerate this? Do you think there's anything that, any pieces or nuggets of information that could help the smaller, more local providers all the way up to maybe some of the larger, big national providers in terms of leaning into data and using it as a tool to help us get to audience-based selling going into 2021?
Oh, they should definitely take a long, hard look at why they are investing in digital and potentially in programmatic. I still find when I'm out there talking to a lot of our members, not everyone, some are super savvy and super smart, but a lot of our members are doing it just as they want to try it out, right? Like, we have some remnant space that we can sell programmatically, so let's do it and see if it works. And then they're like, I only got a check of like $127. I don't think I'm gonna. I think that, starting to think differently about why you're doing it, create a real strategy, real goals, and real intentions behind it. So because it can be a great channel for you. Programmatic, it's not about remnants, it's about increasing the value of your inventory, or automation for that sense. So educate yourself on what you can accomplish. Take a look at what happened on the media side and how that evolved, and how, again, it's not just remnants. I think that's number one. And invest in it, because it is the future. I really think that that's the most important thing. And I think that's something that we at the OAAA also need to do a better job, training and education and more information around what programmatic is, because I think that there are a lot of misconceptions, both around that and digital. And then also, digital, to your point before, is not just about a screen that is electrical, as somebody said to me at some point. It's like a television. That's the screen, but to your point, digital is a lot of stuff in the back end. And then take a hard look at 5G. I think that that's a huge opportunity for our industry. So start educating yourself on that too. And by the way, 5G is an opportunity for out of home, not just because we can use the transmission to have better content, sell more, be faster and better and more intelligent. We also have a lot of structures that you can put base stations on, so we can make double money on 5G.
Oh, that's actually really interesting. Yeah, I mean, using 5G to be able to push big video files faster makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
We got a few questions that popped in. I'm curious. So one of the questions was, if you could snap your fingers and change 3 aspects of the out-of-home industry instantly, what would you change?
Number one would be, I would love to get the whole industry to look at, not lessen the internal competition and kind of talking to ourselves so much, start looking at the bigger goal, which is sort of how can we jointly grab share from other forms of media. And I'm not saying that like steal from television or anything like that, but by proving which we kind of have, but using that more, how we are complementary to other forms of media, we really need to be part of the overall advertising pie. We can grow our industry. That's how we're going to get from 9 billion to 35. So that would be number one. I feel like our industry is still very hyper focused on ourselves, so kind of widen the net a little bit. Number two, I mean, start thinking more about, I think it is important to think a little bit more about get closer to what the advertiser actually wants from you. So, start thinking more about audiences and what solutions you have to offer rather than just a space that you can put out there. Then we're doing a lot of great things, right? We now have good measurement. We are starting to build programmatic. We're building better solutions for how we deal with data. Creative in our industry has always been amazing. I mean, we're kind of hitting all the plugs. So it's more about how we go to market with our product that I think is important. And then I think this is not a change, but I do think that we have been in a shitty place, right? With this don't go out of home situation that we've been in. It's not over, but the world is opening up. So I think we need to be positive and stay positive around the fact that as people leave their homes, they're going to want to be out of home, and it's going to be good for us, right? So I think stay a little bit more positive.
Yeah, I think that, those are awesome sentiment, and really appreciate you being able to take time out of your busy schedule to do this. Going back to, people are not out of home. The perspective is so different in different parts of the country. And, unfortunately, there's so much out of home decision-making that happens in New York. And
Yep.
if you live in Manhattan, your reality is so different than if you live in LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Texas, Arizona. It's just totally different perspectives. And so we've been finding that interesting in the way that we're selling through and describing like what's actually going on outside in the rest of America. I've got another really amazing LinkedIn Live session that's going to be next Tuesday at noon Pacific. It'll be a panel discussion with 5, including myself, 5 Forbes 30 under 30 ad tech, MarTech CEOs. It'll be moderated by Marty Swant at Forbes. I'm super excited about it. I'll make sure to share that out. Anna, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I'm going to end the live session here in a minute. I like to pause for a sec because it actually takes a little bit of time for the live to end. So I'm going to pause here. Thanks all for tuning in, and we'll see you live on LinkedIn soon.